One evening, Obianuju developed a bad fever and chills. It seemed like malaria. She was shivering and could barely sit up. Chidinma was very worried and wanted to take her to the clinic down the road. The clinic visit and malaria treatment might cost about 10,000 to 15,000 naira perhaps. When Akagom came home and saw Obianuju lying under layers of blankets, sweating and weak, he clicked his tongue in concern but then immediately said, "Malaria? Just malaria. No need for hospital." Chidinma objected. "She's very weak in eye. We should get her tested and maybe an injection or proper medicine. The pills I gave her aren't bringing the fever down." Akagom shook his head. "Why spend so much? I bought malaria medicine last year. Check the drawer." He referred to a leftover partial pack of chloroquine tablets, a bit expired. Chidinma held them, uncertain. "These are old and might not be enough." "She can take them first. They will work," Akagom insisted. "Also, cook bitter leaf water and let her drink the water. It helps fever." Obianuju mourned from the bed. "Papa, please, I feel terrible. Maybe a doctor." But Akagom stood firm. "You will be fine, my dear. Your mother will take good care of you at home. Hospital is just going to take our money, and all they will say is, take rest and drink water. Exactly what you can do here. It's the same treatment, trust me." He spoke kindly, but with a stubborn finality. Chidinma had to make do. She used cool clothes on Obianuju's head through the night, gave her the old pills and herbal concoction as Akagom suggested. It took Obianuju a full week to recover her strength. Perhaps the mild malaria ran its course. Perhaps the minimal treatment helped a bit, but the family knew she suffered longer than she might have if proper care was given. Akagom, however, acted triumphant. "See, you are well now. I told you it would be okay without wasting money on doctors." Obianuju just nodded weakly. Inside, they all simmered with frustration. But what could they do? Another instance was about clothing. Obiageri had just turned 21, and a cousin of hers was getting married in the village. Obiageri was invited to be on the bridal train, which meant she needed a nice dress. All the girls were to wear a uniform style of dress known as ashwebi. The dress would cost some money to sew. When she brought this up to her father, hoping at least this once he would agree since it was a family occasion, Akagom said, "Why do you need a new dress? Don't you have a nice dress already? You young girls always want new clothes every time. When your mother married me, she had 2 good dresses, 2 and she made them last." Chidinma chimed in. "We could adjust one of her old dresses, but the bride specifically chose a style and fabric. It's kind of expected to match others." Akagom waved his hand firmly. "They will have to understand. If they really want her to match, they should provide the dress. I'm not spending what I don't have to." Ashamed, Obiageri ended up not participating in the bridal train. She attended the wedding in an older dress, telling her relatives that her father could not afford the ashwebi, which made a few of them raise eyebrows, knowing he was well off. Obiageri tried to laugh it off with her cousins, but it hurt her pride and happiness. She was one of the bride's favorite younger cousins, but had to sit quietly instead of standing with the wedding party. Little sacrifices and disappointments like these piled up in the family's heart. Akagom even controls small daily things. To save money, he would forbid the children from using the light bulb in the daytime. "Open the window, sunlight is free." He limited the use of the one old air conditioner they had, a small window unit they had gotten years ago, to only the hottest of hot days, because he worried about electric bill. Most nights they slept with just a fan or no fan when power was out, sweating. When power was gone, he wouldn't hear of renting or buying a small generator called I Pass My Neighbor, which many neighbors used. The noise and the fuel cost are not worth it. "Others can waste their money, not me," he insisted. So in darkness, they often remained until power came back. Their tap in the compound had broken once, and instead of contributing with other tenants to fix it, Akagom made his family walk 2 streets away to fetch water from a public borehole, just to avoid paying the plumber share of 1,000 naira. His logic: why pay when you can get it free elsewhere? A little exercise to fetch water won't kill anyone. Mbano. The neighbors were annoyed by this because every other tenant contributed except him, yet his family still used the water after others paid. When they confronted him, saying it wasn't fair, Akagom retorted, "If the landlord doesn't fix it, I'm not obliged. Complain to the landlord." Eventually, the tap was fixed by the landlord after much delay. But Akagom has strained neighborly relations. He earned a silent reputation in the neighborhood as the rich man with poor habits. People pitied Chidinma and the children. One day, Ifoma, a jovial neighbor, sat with Chidinma by the communal outdoor cooking area. She gently broached the subject. "Munyem, I hope you are coping. Men like your husband, it's not easy. Why is he so bent on saving every kobo? Who is he saving it for, if not for you and the children to enjoy life?" Chidinma shrugged and gave a sad smile. "He always says it's for the future. I don't know what else to call it but stinginess. But what can I do? I try to manage. At least he doesn't drink or gamble or chase other women. It's just this money matter." Ifoma clucked her tongue. "Better soup na money kill am," she said, quoting the common saying, "If you want life to be sweet, you have to spend money." Well, God is your strength, my sister. One day, those who hold too tight will have to let it go. Chidinma found some comfort in these chats, though she never spoke ill of her husband in public. She just said, "I'm praying for him to realize before it's too late." Well, that day of realization was coming faster than anyone knew. The months rolled by, and soon the heavy rains of the season arrived. The leaky roof Akagom refused to fix became a real nuisance. One stormy night, water dripped steadily into their room. The bucket placed under the leak was filling up fast. As thunder rumbled, a miserable scene unfolded. The family woke at 2 a.m. to move their bedding away from the leaky area. Akagom himself got up, grumbling, and placed a second bucket because the first was overflowing onto the floor. A big drop of water plopped right onto his forehead as he was adjusting the bucket, and he jumped back. "Chineke!" he cursed under his breath, wiping his face. He was drenched from that corner. The children, through half asleep, couldn't help but giggle quietly at the sight of their father startled by the water attack. Irritable, Akagom said, "You see, the landlord should fix this nonsense. I'll call him tomorrow." He always said that, but rarely actually bothered, since landlord might expect tenant to share the cost. Chidinma gave him a pointed look. "If we had fixed it earlier..." "Shh! Let's just manage tonight," he cut her off. They got through that night, but the next morning, the floor was slippery, and some of their clothes stored in a corner had gotten soaked. The children were late to school trying to dry things out. Akagom left for work in a foul mood, as his shoes had gotten wet and he had to wear an older pair. Still, even that incident did not loosen his purse strings. He simply nagged the landlord more via phone and waited. Akagom was 48 years old, and though he was strong and hardly ever sick, years of stress and joyless toil can affect anyone. One day, as the heavy rains of July poured over Onitsha, Akagom fell ill. It started as a mild headache and tiredness. He had gotten drenched at the market while unloading a shipment of spare parts. He volunteered to carry many heavy boxes himself to avoid paying laborers, of course. He came home late that night, shivering and wet. Chidinma was concerned when she saw him. "You are soaked. Come, get out of those wet clothes, she said, guiding him to sit down. Akagom sat on the edge of the bed, feeling dizzy. He had refused to take a taxi or bus in the rain, choosing to ride on the back of an Okada because it was cheaper, and he ended up cold and damp. Now, as he tried to pull off his shoes, his head spun. Chidinma quickly fetched a towel to dry him off. She could feel he was getting a fever. His skin was warm and he was coughing lightly. I will make a hot tea for you, Chidinma offered. And please, you need to rest. You look not well, my husband. Akagom, stubborn as ever, waved a hand. It's nothing, just a little cold. I'll be fine by morning. He insisted, though his voice was weaker than usual. He lay down, wrapping himself in an old threadbare blanket. All night he tossed and turned, sweating and then getting chills. Chidinma hardly slept, listening to his heavy breathing and quiet groans. By morning, Akagom's condition was worse. He tried to get up at his usual time to head to the market, but as soon as he stood, a wave of dizziness hit him and he slumped back onto the bed. His forehead was burning hot. Obiageri came with a bowl of water and a cloth to wipe his face. Papa, you are very hot, she said, worried. Akagom felt miserable, headache, fever, body pains. Yet, when Chidinma said, we should go to the hospital now, Akagom refused outright. No, no hospital, he said hoarsely. It's just fever. Get me some Panadol and let me rest. I cannot waste money on hospital for a common fever. He coughed hard right after saying this, which did not make his claim of common fever very convincing. Chidinma was beside herself with worry. She knew this was likely malaria or something that needed urgent care. She pleaded with him, please Akagom, let's at least get a test. We can go to the pharmacy for a quick malaria test. It's not too expensive. But Akagom was extremely stubborn. In his feverish state, his stingy instinct only grew stronger, as if he feared that falling ill was going to make him lose control of his money. No test, he muttered. I just need rest. You want those pharmacists and doctors to cheat me? They will just eat my money and still tell me to rest. I can rest at home for free. He attempted a weak chuckle at his own joke. Obianuju and Obina stood at a corner of the room, anxious. They had never seen their father this sick. Obina whispered, Mama, maybe we should call Uncle Okudili or a neighbor to take Papa to the clinic. Chidinma nodded. He decided she would call Okudili, Akagom's brother. Since he was a reasonable man, perhaps he could persuade her husband. She stepped outside the room and asked a neighbor's boy to quickly run to Umbuka Market and find Okudili at the battery store. The boy dashed off with an umbrella under the drizzling rain. Meanwhile, Akagom was getting more serious. He was half awake, half asleep, mumbling things. At one point, as the children tried to kill him with the wet clothes, he suddenly grabbed Obiageri's hand and said, Don't touch my money. I won't spend it. I won't spend it. The girl pulled her hand away, startled. Papa, it's me, Obiageri. I'm not touching your money. I'm just trying to help you. Akagom didn't seem to hear her. His mind was foggy with fever and fear. It was as if, even in illness, the thought of his money being used worried him more than his health. Chidinma re-entered the room and realized with alarm what Akagom was muttering. She knew that convincing him to get help was going to be a battle. An hour later, Okudili arrived, out of breath and soaked from rushing in the rain. He found Akagom lying on the bed, moaning softly, his eyes closed. The Ghana must go back, full of money, was right beside Akagom, and to Okudili's astonishment, Akagom had tied one end of a rope around the bag and the other end around his own waist. It was a bizarre sight. Okudili had heard jokes that his cousin brother and a friend would tie his money to himself, but he never thought he would really do such a thing. Chidinma explained that in the early morning, as she and the kids tried to persuade Akagom to go to the hospital, He became agitated about his money bag. He had struggled to his feet, dragged out the heavy bag from its hiding spot, and insisted on tying it to his body. He was afraid if we took him to the hospital, someone might steal the bag while he's away. Chidinma said in a low voice, embarrassed. He wouldn't even let me touch the bag. He kept saying, all my life savings, I won't leave it for thieves. I won't let anyone spend it foolishly. So he tied it with that rope to himself, and then he collapsed back on the bed. Okudili shook his head sadly. He sat on a stool next to Akagom and spoke firmly. Akagom, it's me, Okwi. Can you hear me? Akagom opened his eyes a crack. He recognized Okudili and managed a weak groan. Okwi, my money, watch my money, he muttered. Okudili almost wanted to slap sense into him, but he controlled himself. Forget the money, Enye. Think of your life. You are very sick. We need to take you to the hospital. You can't get well sitting here like this. He motioned to Obinna. My boy, help me. We will carry your father to my car and go to the hospital. I brought my car. When Akagom had my car and hospital, he became strangely alert despite his fever. He clutched the Ghana must go bag tightly and shook his head side by side, sweat flying. No hospital, he rasped. I won't go. They will ask for my money. Tests, drips, no. Okode tried to argue. But you might die, Akagom. What use is money if you die? Are you hearing yourself? He gestured in frustration at Chidinma, who had tears in her eyes. The children were now openly sobbing in the background, scared for their father. Akagom closed his eyes and turned away. He was too weak to fight physically, but he refused to agree. In his mind, he believed he could beat this illness on his own. Spending perhaps tens of thousands on hospital bills was unthinkable to him. He had never spent such a sum in one go for any family need, and he wasn't about to start now, not even for himself. Seeing that Akagom would not consent, Okudili made a tough decision. He stood and said to Chidinma, he's not listening, but we must act. If we force him into the car, he will struggle. I will go get a nurse to come and give him an injection, at least something for the fever. Maybe that will help a bit. Chidinma nodded. Although she had little hope an injection at home would be enough, Okudili left to fetch the nurse. All day, Akagom's fever raged. A nurse did come and gave him an injection for fever and hydration salt for dehydration. He slept fitfully after that, clutching the rope that tied him to his money bag. By nightfall, his breathing grew labored. Chidinma sat by his side, sponging his face. She was exhausted and heartbroken. She whispered softly, Nani, please, you have to get better. Please, Who will take care of us? We need you, not your money. In her heart, she added, if only you understood that while alive. Akagom didn't respond. He was barely conscious. Throughout that night, the rain poured and the wind howled outside. Inside the tiny room, it was quiet, except for Akagom's heavy breathings and an occasional murmur when he stirred. The children huddled together in one corner, having cried until they had no tears left, praying silently for Papa to recover. Chidinma continued to keep vigil. Around midnight, Akagom opened his eyes one last time. In the dim light of the lantern, he saw the worried face of his wife and the shadowy forms of his children in the corner. Perhaps a flicker of realization passed through his fevered mind that these were the people he had worked so hard for, yet hardly showed love in the way they needed. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but only a faint croak came out. Chidinma leaned closer. Did you say something, Nai? Akagom's lips trembled. It was unclear if he was trying to say I'm sorry or I'm okay or something else. A tear rolled down the side of his face. Chidinma gently wiped it, holding his hand. It was the first time in years she had seen him shed a tear. But before he could form more words, a violent shiver ran through Akagom's body, and then he fell still. His hand went limp in Chidinma's grasp. Akagom had passed away. For a moment, Chidinma didn't realize what had happened. Akagom, she called softly, no answer. Nai, please wake up. She stood up lightly, but he lay motionless, eyes closed as if in deep peace. The rope still tied him to his beloved money bag, which now held no meaning to the man who had died. A low wail escaped Chidinma's throat as reality set in. The children had and immediately burst into tears again, this time knowing their father was gone. In the middle of the night, the cries of the family rose in the small room. Neighbors woke up and rushed over, carrying lamps and offering condolences. Okudiri, who had stayed in the yard, too anxious to go home, came inside and bowed his head. Ah, Akagom, you have gone just like that, he said softly, wiping his own eyes. Despite all his faults, Akagom was their father and husband, and the family mourned him. Obegeri cried for the loving dad she wished she had. Obianuju cried because despite everything, she didn't want him to die. Obina cried loudly because he was still young and the loss was scary. Chidinma held her children, weeping with them. It was a sad night in the Face Me I Face You compound as other tenants tried to comfort the grieving family. In the morning, after the rain stopped and the sun rose weakly, the practical matters of death came. Some elders among the neighbors and church members came to help arrange Akagom's burial. It was to be a simple affair. His body would be taken to his hometown the next day for burial as is custom, with only a small wake that evening. When Chidinma started to think about the expenses, coffin, transportation, etc., he felt a stab of worry. How would they afford it? Then her eyes fell on the Ghana must go bag, still chained to the bed and tied to Akagom's waist. A bittersweet realization came to her. The money. The hard money, his money, which he had refused to spend even in their need. Now, ironically, that very money would have to be used to bury him. Carefully, Chidinma untied the rope from Akagom's waist. The neighbors helped unlock the chain. They opened the big bag. Everyone's eyes widened at the sight. Stacks upon stacks of naira notes, bundled and wrapped. Some bundles were old and brownish, savings from many years back. Some were newer. There were even some US dollars in an envelope, maybe from an old business deal, and some shiny coins at the bottom of the bag. It was a small fortune, amassed over years of extreme frugality. Chidinma couldn't help but cry anew, but this time her tears were mixed with anger. She thought about all the times the children went without good food or clothes, all the times she herself endured sickness or hunger because Akagom said there was no money to spare. Yet here it was. There was more than enough to have taken Obianuju to the hospital, to buy extra meat for Obegeri's celebration, to pay for better living conditions. He had let them suffer needlessly. One of the elderly neighbors placed a hand on Chidinma's shoulder, sensing her feelings. Ndo, the neighbor consoled. Take heart, at least he left something behind for all of you. Chidinma sniffled and nodded. Yes, he had left this money. Since he couldn't take it with him, it was now theirs to use. She decided right then that she would use it wisely, to truly care for her family as Akagom had failed to do in life. They took a reasonable sum out of the bag to cover the funeral and transportation. Chidinma, being a kind woman, even paid back a couple of neighbors who had lent her small amounts over the years when Akagom wouldn't provide. Gestures the neighbors deeply appreciated. Akagom was laid to rest in his village with modest dignity. Chidinma did not splurge on an extravagant coffin or ceremony, knowing Akagom wouldn't have wanted that, and frankly, she still had a fungal mindset for practical things. After the burial, Chidinma and the children returned to Onitsha with the remaining money. Back in the empty one-room apartment, they sat together and opened the Ghana Must Go bag once more. It was time to plan their future. A future Akagom had always talked about saving for, but never truly allowed them to enjoy. I will secure a better place for us to live, Chidinma declared. It was the first major decision she made as the head of the family now. The children nodded eagerly. They all dreamed of living in a house where they didn't have to share a bathroom with an entire compound. where they could each have a little space to breathe. Within a few weeks, Chidinma found a better apartment. It was a decent three-bedroom flat in a nicer part of town. When the family moved in, it felt like a dream. The flat had a living room, a small kitchen, and even a private bathroom. Luxuries they never had before. For the first time, Obegiri and Obianoju could share a room separate from their brother, and Chidinma had her own bedroom as a widow. They painted the walls bright colors to make it cheerful. On the day they moved, neighbors from the old compound watched in amazement as trucks carried the family belongings, plus new items Chidinma had bought, like a proper dining table, a new mattresses. Akagom's family is moving up in the world now, one neighbor commented. Another one chuckled. Yes, so they will finally chop his money now that he's gone. There was no malice in their tone, more like relief and happiness for the family's improved fortune. Obina ran from room to room in the new flat, excitedly opening every door and window. Mama, we have our own toilet and running water, he shouted, as if they had moved into a palace. Obegiri found a spot to set up a reading table for herself. She planned to study hard and perhaps go to university now that the funds were there. Obianoju happily unpacked the new dresses and shoes her mother had bought for her and her sister. The first new clothes they had gotten in a long time, not bent down select or mended old ones. Chidinma used some money to stock the kitchen with plenty of food, big bags of rice, beans, garri, yams, vegetable oil, spices, all the things she used to scrimp on. For once, the store was full and she didn't have to worry about measuring every grain. She even bought chicken and beef in the freezer, something they couldn't afford before. The children's eyes lit up seeing all the food. They felt secure, knowing they couldn't go hungry. That first night in their new home, the family decided to have a small feast, a kind of housewarming dinner with just themselves. Chidinma cooked a rich pot of jollof rice with plenty of chicken and fried plantains on the side. The delicious scent filled their new flat. They set the dining table with actual plates and spoons, not the mismatched plastic they used to use. There was even a cold bottle of orange soda for each child, a special treat. They all sat down and looked at the spread of food. It was far more than they have ever had at one meal when Akagom was alive. For a moment, a silence fell as they thought of him. Chidinma, though enjoying the freedom, felt a bit sadness. If only your father had allowed moments like this when he was with us, she said quietly. Obegiri, wise beyond our years, replied, Mama, Papa made his choices. We tried our best. Now he is gone, but at least he left his money, which can give us a better life. I just hope wherever he is, he understands now. Yes, Chidinma agreed. I hope he understands. She then smiled and raised her glass of soda. Come, let's cheer to a new beginning for our family. May we use this money well, and may we always have happiness and health. The children raised their glasses to clink. Cheers, they all said and took a sip of their sweet fizzy drink, giggling at the bubbles, something they rarely got to enjoy. Dinner was joyful. The family laughed as Obina told a funny story about how he almost got in trouble at school for a prank. It was something he had hesitated to share with his strict father, but now he felt free to talk about it. They all ate to their fill and even went for second helpings without fear. Obina piled his plate high with more rice and chicken until Obianoju joked, Be careful or your stomach will burst. They all laughed. Obina grinned. I'm making up for all the times I was still hungry, sister. Leave me, oh. Today I will eat well. Even Chidinma allowed herself an extra piece of chicken without guilt. It felt so good to not worry about every little expense. After dinner, they put on the new television Chidinma had bought. It was a small TV, but to them it was wonderful. They watched a comedy show and laughed, feeling content. That night, they slept peacefully in their comfortable new beds, with the fan blowing cool air. Yes, Chidinma made sure to switch on the fan. They were no longer afraid to use a bit of electricity to be comfortable. However, As the family slept happily in their new home, not far away, something unusual was happening. Akagom's spirit, restless in the afterlife, found itself back in Onitsha, drawn to the place he had lived and the family he had left behind. In the dim space of the old one-room apartment, now empty and dark as another tenant had not yet moved in, a faint ghostly figure appeared. It was Akagom, or what remained of him. A transparent, shadow-like form of the man, still dressed in the last clothes he wore, looking confused. Akagom's ghost hovered in the familiar room, trying to make sense of his new existence. He remembered being very sick, he remembered a sense of peace, and then he saw Chidinma crying and the children crying. He had tried to speak but couldn't. Then there was darkness, and now he was here. He looked down and realized, shockingly, that he could see through his own body. Am I a spirit? He thought aloud. His voice echoed softly and no one heard him. Panicked, he floated out into the compound yard. Some neighbors were there, chatting in the evening. Akagom recognized them and rushed to a woman who often gossiped about him, Auntie Ngozi. He called out, trying to get her attention, but she continued talking to another man, oblivious to Akagom's presence. He reached out to tap her shoulder, but his hand went right through her, like a puff of smoke. He passed through her and back. Akagom realized with a sinking feeling that indeed he was dead and now a ghost, invisible and unheard by the living. Immediately, his thoughts went to his money and his family. Where was his precious bag of money? Where were Chidinma and the children? The last he remembered was them crying and the bag tied to him. Did they bury the bag with him? He hoped so, in some corner of his mind, so it would stay with him in the grave. He needs to know. In an instant, his spirit drifted, almost pulled by an unseen force, to the new flat where his family now lived. Perhaps his love or worry for them drew him there. He found himself in the living room of a place he didn't recognize at first. It was nicely painted and furnished. There was a TV showing a night program, illuminating the room with flickering light. On the couch, he saw them, Chidinma and the children, fast asleep in front of the TV. They must have dozed off while watching. Akagom's ghost floated closer. He saw the remains of their feast on the dining table. An almost empty pot of jollof rice, plate with bones of chicken, empty soda bottles. His eyes, if ghosts have eyes, widened. A feast? Chicken? Soda? In this house? How? Then he noticed the Ghana must go bag he valued so dearly. It was open and half full, tucked in a corner with some money still inside. But much of its contents had clearly been taken out and used. The truth hit him. His family was spending the money. His money. They had moved to a new home and were enjoying the comforts he always denied them. To any normal loving father spirit, this might bring a sense of relief or justice. But Akagom's reaction was different. He was horrified. Not because his family was finally living well, but because in his warped thinking, they were burning through the money he had saved so tightly. Akagom's ghost hovered over the sleeping family, wringing his transparent hands. Chidinma, children, what are you doing? He shouted, but all that came out was a hollow whisper that merely rustled the curtains. They could not hear him at all. He floated to the dining table and saw the remains of the meal. In life, seeing a pot nearly empty like that after one meal would have made him angry about excess. Now, he felt that older anger and panic rising. They cooked a whole pot of rice and all that chicken just for one night's meal, he exclaimed to the empty room. The only response was the soft hum of the refrigerator. Ah! They had a fridge now too, he noticed. In frustration, Akagom's spirit tried to pick up the pot to see exactly how much was eaten, but his ghostly fingers passed through it. He had no power to touch physical objects. Desperate to do something, he moved to where the Ghana must go bag sat. Inside, he saw bundles of money remaining. It was a lot, but he could tell it was less than before. Perhaps about a third of what he had saved was already spent in a matter of weeks. To him, this was an unbearable thought. No, no, no. At this rate, They will finish everything, he mourned. Slow down, Biko, don't finish it. You people, he hovered over Chidema, who was dozing with her head resting on the couch. The ghost gently blew, trying to wake her with a chill breeze. Chidema stirred a little and wrapped her arms around herself, but did not wake. Chidema, it's me. Please hear me, Akagom whispered. Save the money. Don't spend too much at once. You need to budget. Understand? Budget! Chidema shivered slightly from the cool draft that passed by, but in her half-sleep, she only murmured something and snuggled deeper into the couch. Obegiri, sleeping next to her, yawned and put a blanket over both of them. Akagom floated back, realizing that he was truly powerless to communicate. It was a strange punishment. He had refused to speak kindly or listen in life, and now, even if he wanted to, he could not speak to them in death. But that did not stop him from trying. Oh, he tried. Over the next few days, or whatever time means to a ghost, Akagom's spirit roamed around. Following his family, he watched with dismay as Chidema paid a hefty advance for the new apartment rent. Money he would have haggled to the last naira. He trailed behind as she took the children to a good clothing store and bought new outfits and shoes for each of them. In the store, Obianuju held up a lovely dress and Chidema happily paid for it. Meanwhile, Akagom's ghost was practically jumping up and down, unseen, shouting, "Why buy new? Her old dress was still fine, and that price, did you even bargain well?" Other shoppers only felt a slight cold breeze but didn't know why. When the family went to the market to buy nice provisions, Akagom followed. It was a comical sight. The family strolling through the open market carrying bags of groceries, while behind them, a worried ghost zigzagged, trying to snatch items from their hands or put cheaper ones in their cart. Of course, all to no effect. Chidema picked out a large tuber of yam and paid the vendor generously. Akagom's ghost tried to push a smaller yam inside, but nobody noticed. Obina convinced his mother to get a new football, and Akagom wailed, "Football? Do you really need that now? That's 500 naira wasted." But the boy ran off delightfully with the ball in hand, completely oblivious. One evening, the family decided to go out and have a treat of a local eatery, something they had never done together when Akagom was alive. They went to a modest restaurant and ordered plates of spicy pepper soup and soft drinks. As they sat enjoying, Chidema said to the kids, "Your father never took us out like this, but I know he had his reasons. Still, I want you to enjoy a bit. You deserve it." They smiled and enjoyed the meal. Of course, Akagom's ghost was right there, hovering near their table with a gloomy face. To him, this was an unnecessary outing when food could be cooked at home for less. He watched each of them finish a whole bottle of Fanta soda and nearly cried out loud, "That's so much sugar and money!" But his protest came out only as a faint sigh of wind that barely rustled the table napkins. As time passed, Akagom's spirit grew more and more desperate and miserable. Not only had he died, which was bad enough, but now he had to witness what he considered the squandering of the fortune he devoted his life to save. However, from an outside perspective, the family was not even being that reckless. Chidema had actually deposited a good portion of the money in a bank account for future needs and school fees and was using a reasonable part to improve their immediate life. Yet, Akagom's ghostly mind was so obsessed with not spending that any purchase at all made him panic. One night, Akagom's spirit drifted into the children's new shared bedroom. The girls were asleep in their bed and Obina on his. The boy had his new football tucked beside him. The ghost looked at his children and a strange feeling washed over him. Something he hadn't truly felt when alive, regret and sorrow. Not for the money, but for how he had treated them. Seeing them sleeping peacefully now, well fed and happier, he realized they had not been discontent in a long time. And he, through his stinginess, had been the cause of their unhappiness. Akagom's ghost thought of how Obina used to beg for more food, how Obegeri wanted to celebrate her achievement, how Obianuju fell sick and he ignored her suffering. If ghosts could cry, Akagom, would have wept at that moment. In a quavering voice only he could hear, he whispered to his sleeping children, "Forgive me. I didn't take care of you." Of course, there was no reply. Obinna just snored softly, hugging his football. Kagom's wife too. He visited. Chidinma was in her room, saying her night prayers. She prayed aloud. "Dear God, thank you for providing for us. Thank you for this change in our life. I pray that Akagom's soul is at peace. I hope he is in a better place and understands why I must do what I'm doing for the children." She was speaking to God, but also in a way to her late husband. Standing unseen by her side, Akagom's spirit felt a deep ache. He wanted to answer, to tell her he was sorry and that he now knew he had been wrong. But each time he opened his mouth, his words came out as an unintelligible whisper. Frustrated, he let out a cry. It came only at a sudden gust that made the candle in Chidinma's room flicker. She looked up, puzzled by the breeze in a closed room. "Perhaps a window is open somewhere," she murmured, then resumed praying and soon went to bed. Kagom's ghost slumped, as much as a floating figure can slump. He realized he was truly alone in this state. No one could hear him nag or plead about money now, and he was forced to see the truth. Life went on without him, and his family was actually better off spending the money he had hoarded. In the days that followed, he continued to roam around his family, fretting whenever they spent even a few naira. One afternoon, he saw Chidinma giving some money to a poor beggar woman on the street. This would have made him furious in life, giving away money just like that. His ghost flew between Chidinma and the beggar, waving his arms as if to block the charity. But of course, he did nothing. Chidinma handed the grateful woman a 500 naira note. The beggar blessed her. "May God bless you, madam. May the soul of your husband rest in peace." Chidinma felt a strange chill when the woman said that, as if Akagom's soul indeed was near. She quickly moved on, a little spooked, but still satisfied at doing a good deed. If Akagom's ghost could tear its hair out, he would have given 500 naira away just like that. When he used to argue over 50 naira price differences, it was almost comical how upset he was, even as a spirit. More time passed, the family settled into a comfortable routine. Became prepared to go to university the next year. Thanks to the fund available, Obianiji started a skill training program for fashion design, something she had dreamed of but assumed was impossible before. Obinna joined a better secondary school and even got to play on a football team with a proper kit that Chidinma bought. Chidinma herself started a small business selling ladies' shoes in the market, using a bit of the money as capital so that she could keep earning and not just rely on the saved money. She was being prudent and smart, the way Akagom might have approved, but unlike him, she wasn't neglecting the family's happiness or needs. They no longer live in luxury, but they lived well and with less worry. All this while, Akagom's spirit lingered, watching events unfold slowly. It dawned on him that his family was not being wasteful. They were building a life. They were actually doing the things he could have done with them, and still plenty of money would have remained. It was a powerful lesson for the ghost. Saving money is good, but hoarding it without purpose and without caring for the present only leads to regret. One evening, as the sun set in red glow over Onitsha and the noise of the city calmed into a gentle buzz, Akagom's ghost found himself drifting back towards the old compound where he once lived. In the yard, a few of his old neighbors were chatting about him after hearing how his family was doing now. "Honestly, it serves him right. The way things turned out," one man said, lighting his lantern. "Someone who refused to enjoy life at all, now others will enjoy for him." A woman responded, "At least his family got something from all the suffering. But it's so sad too. If he had been kinder and less stingy, he would be here with them enjoying as well." "Yes, so," the man agreed. "Money is meant to be used for good, not tied in a bag until you die. As the saying goes, a coffin has no pocket for you to take your riches along." Kagom's ghost hovered near them, listening. He realized people saw the truth clearly. He felt shame, wanting to tell them they were right, but as always, no sound came from him that humans could hear. A stray dog in the compound saw the ghostly figure and started barking at the seemingly empty air, startling the neighbors. "What's the dog barking at?" the woman asked uneasy. "Maybe it sees a spirit," the man said half jokingly. Akagom's ghost drifted away. Even the dog couldn't scare him. He was too deep in thought. He went one last time to see his family that night. They were all gathered in the living room of their new home, having a small family prayer. Chidima prayed for Akagom's soul again, saying she forgave him and hoped he was at peace. Each child in turn also spoke, saying something kind about their father despite his flaws. Obina said he remembered how Papa taught him multiplication. Indeed, Akagom did tutor him sometimes, as it cost nothing. Obianuju said Papa always made sure they were safe at home, and Obiageri said though Papa was strict, he had built the foundation that now they could stand on. They expressed love and forgiveness. Akagom's spirit felt a weight lift. They did not hate him, they just suffered because of his actions, but they were healing and even remembering the good part of him. Perhaps he thought, this is what it means to find peace. He looked at the money bag in the corner. It was much emptier now, but the family was well. He looked at their faces full of life and hope, not gaunt or sad like before, and he realized, finally, that this was the real wealth he had overlooked, a happy, healthy family. If only he had realized this sooner, he would still be alive with them, partaking in that happiness. This was the beautiful twist of fate. The money he had saved was indeed used for the family's future, but he wasn't there to share in it. It was a bit funny and a bit sad, and entirely of his own doing. Akagom's ghost stepped back. He felt himself growing fainter. Perhaps the love and forgiveness his family offered was releasing him from this earth. As he faded, he said in a gentle whisper, "Goodbye, my family. Live well and live happily. I was wrong, but I have learned my lesson too late." The breeze picked up gently in the room. As if in answer, the family felt a calm presence, and Chidima even thought she had a faint sigh. She smiled softly and murmured, "Farewell, Akagom." And so, Akagom's spirit finally left to wherever spirits go, no longer bound to his bag of money or his earthly worries. As for Chidima, Obiageri, Obianuju, and Obina, they went on to live much better lives. They missed Akagom in their own ways, but they did not miss the hardship he had imposed. They cherished the freedom to eat well, to get an education, and to enjoy simple pleasures. In a way, Akagom's money did fulfill its purpose of caring for the family, but only after teaching them and him a profound lesson. Moral of the story: share and care for your loved ones while you are alive and well. Money is useful, but it is not more important than family. If you hold it too tight, you might lose both it and the chance to be happy. In the end, no one can take their wealth with them, and a life filled with love and laughter is far richer than one spent counting coins. And so, the family lived happily ever after, free from stinginess and want. While the memory of Akagom lingered like a cautionary tale in the streets of Onitsha, reminding all who heard his story that generosity brings joy and miserliness brings only regret. Thank you so much for watching this amazing story about Akagom and his family on African Stories by V. If you liked his story and learned a lot from it, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories by V, and do not forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.